It's a shocking fall from grace. In less than a year, P. Diddy went from beloved music icon to disgraced sexual predator, at least according to the charges from the feds. Right now, he's behind bars in New York, the same place where just last year he was given a key to the city. It was a disturbing set of allegations that led to Diddy's arrest in the way of multiple civil suits brought by accusers. And in some of those suits, co-defendants are listed, and in others, celebrities. Could it be a time of reckoning for them too? We're taking a deep dive into all the celebrities listed in Diddy's civil lawsuits and whether they too could face federal charges. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. A groundbreaking case brought forth just this week when 54-year-old Sean Diddy Combs was arrested on September 15th. He now faces some pretty serious federal charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Diddy was indicted by a federal grand jury and is now being held in Brooklyn at the Metropolitan Detention Center after he was twice denied bail. Diddy's attorneys say he was in New York for about a week before the arrest, anticipating the federal indictment. But he wasn't the only one who kind of saw this coming. After federal investigators raided two of Diddy's homes back in March, we kind of had an idea something was on the way. Just this week, we learned some of the items that investigators collected during those raids.
Yeah, greetings everyone. Greetings everyone. Regards to you, depending on where you are across the world. Today we're going to talk about a very important subject, very, very important, extremely important subject. The arrest of Diddy. There's controversy, of course, surrounding this subject, and the fact that Diddy has been arrested. Of course, no one condones the abuse of our women. Like Tupac said, why do we, mistreat our women? So no one condones the mistreatment, especially of our women, for that matter, the African women. No one supports that kind of thinking. But as Black people, before we celebrate this across the world, before we celebrate the arrest of Diddy, we need to really put this in perspective. We need to put this issue in perspective and ask ourselves some really critical questions. And in some of those questions that we're going to ask ourselves, I'm going to suggest a couple of scenarios which we need to put into consideration. All right. Of course, Diddy is being accused of what is called racketeering, sex abuse. And we know that his girlfriend, of course, who's Cassie, she said he used to abuse her. Diddy used to abuse her. And this is the reason. We've not seen a lot of women who have come out, other women who have come out, even though they say that a lot of them have come out, to accuse Diddy of, sexual assault. And those women, whether they were young women or old women, that is another question which needs to be asked. If they were old women, and of course, like I said, I'm not saying that Diddy has a right to abuse women, and no one has the right to abuse our women, but we have to ask also our questions. Are these women mature enough? Were they mature enough by the time that he engaged them? He engaged in these activities with them, and did they know that this is what he was going to do, or were they conscious? Were they aware that this is what the guy was going to do, or whether it is pimping them or not? Now, before, as Black people, we celebrate this situation that is going on, we need to really step back for a second, because we may be played a card. You remember the case of Tupac, that Tupac was accused of being in concert with some guys and molesting and raping, of course, a Black woman. And a Black woman accused the Tupac of molesting him. Of molesting her. and Tupac faced a lot of charges during this period. So that is why I'm saying that as Black people, we need to go slow on these matters. And looking at the history of the Black people with the white power structure, the relationship we have with the white power structure, we really again need to step back before we jump high on Twitter and Facebook and all these platforms on YouTube and celebrate and start celebrating, whether it is on TikTok, where we have seen a lot of memes that have been made. And if it is the Black people who are doing this, I think we need really to step back and reflect on our relationship with the power structure, with the white power structure. Now, in this, I'm trying to say that if people do not have power, it becomes difficult for you to confront a system which has power. All right. And in this case, we are talking about the Black people. All right. If you remember very well, the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings, this is what I mean. The Black people came up and built Tulsa, Oklahoma into an economic hub, a successful economic hub for the Black people. The white power structure came and bombed that city and destroyed it. Okay, they destroyed that city, which was an economic powerhouse for the Black people, successful Black people. They built businesses. Now, why were they successful at doing this? They were simply successful at doing this because the Black people did not have a strong political power base. And now, whenever the people do not have a strong political power base, they are susceptible to abuse by other groups. And the Jews understood this very well. You remember that when the Jews did not have a political power base, they were abused all over Europe until a genocide was carried out on them. And this has been carried out on the Black people for the last 500 years, 500, 600 years. It has been carried out. It has been like that. King Leopold came to the Democratic Republic of Congo and killed a lot of people, killed more than 20 million people. The whites came to Africa and took out the blacks. Why? Because there was no organized power base to defend the Africans. And I think it is President Museveni of Uganda who normally talks about a center of gravity, that we need to create a center of gravity for the Black people. All right. So this abuse actually does not stop there at national level or in cases of Oklahoma. We saw it actually even with Marcus Garvey. The reason why, Honorable Marcus Garvey was not able to succeed in organizing the people successfully is simply because there was no power base, there was no political power base to defend the businesses. And this is why it is very important to understand the hierarchy of power, to understand our relationship with the power as Blacks, as Africans. We need to understand the relationship between social organization of society, economics, and the politics. Without politics, economics is nothing. Without politics, without political power, economics is nothing. Without political power, social organization is nothing. And yet, of course, political power comes from social organization. Now we have to organize to build a viable power structure that will protect the African people. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that the white man has built up a system for himself, to protect himself. And you can talk of NATO, you can talk of the conquering and taking over the United States, taking over Canada, all these countries taking over Australia by a group of people who came from Europe. Now, when they reached here, they consolidated that position after World War II with the formation of NATO. Who is NATO? NATO is just basically a white supremacist organization to protect the white interests, white people interests. Now, where is the Black people equivalent of NATO? It doesn't exist. Now, all of you will say, why is he talking about these things, yet he's talking about Diddy at the same time? We are concentrating on the issue of Diddy. I'm coming there. After World War II and after the emergence of the civil rights movement, the Blacks in the United States, and of course Blacks on the continent, in one of the documents, the United States establishment, security establishment, devised the tactics. Okay, they devised tactics to separate the black people from their leadership. Okay, they devised means to separate the black people from their leadership, and this division appeared in a document called the National Security Memoranda 46. And I'll come at length to talk about this document, National Security Memorandum 46. All right, I'll come at length to elaborate on this document, but I'm going to pick out a few things, a few lines which are important. Now, what they wanted to achieve in this particular document is to continue to suppress, because there was the rise of the civil rights movements, the Black Panther. There was agitation during this period, and of course we know that this period is the same period in which the black people or the African countries got their independence. And remember that Dr. Henry Clark said that Africans normally, if they are protesting or they are revolting, they revolt as a group. And this is what happened. You remember that we did a long video about Nkrumah yesterday here. And we say that Nkrumah inspired the civil rights movement in itself. Remember that 1957, after Dr. King left Accra, after attending the independence of Ghana, when Ghana got its independence, he came back to the United States, gave a speech called The Birth of a New Nation, which was inspired by the birth of Ghana as an independent state on the African continent, the first independent state on the African continent, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. He went back to the United States and increased the agitation. This agitation led to the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 in the United States. All right. Now, the rise of these movements against the white power structure and the order which was created in 1945, we are talking about the 60s, the 70s, the whites saw this as a threat. They saw this as a threat. Now, they devised a tactic, and this is the document. This document is a very brief document. It's just one page. You can read it in one sitting. In a few minutes, in less than 5 minutes, you can read this document and you'll be able to go through. Now, they devised a tactic, of course, of dividing the Africans on the continent and the Africans on the other side in the United States. Because they said they were coordinating, they were going to affect the interests of the United States. The interests of the United States, of course, is the interests of the United States, of course, the destruction and suppression and oppression of the black people. That is the interest and their exploitation. Now, they devised means to keep the blacks separated. They did not only devise means to keep the blacks, the black Africans on the continent, but they devised the means to keep the Africans or the African Americans in the United States divided even within the United States itself. And that was the purpose of this particular document. And one of those tactics which they used was to have people concentrate on economics and social organization of order, to be preoccupied with climbing the ladder up, which is almost impossible. That these people have accumulated this power, they have political power, and they have this wealth, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, that they have so much wealth that the wealth is locked in. It has been transferred from generation to generation, is within the power structure. The blacks cannot take it out. Okay. Now, they want you to concentrate on economics to fight a war which you cannot win, which is economics. Organize yourself and continue fighting and say you are building business, but you cannot win. You cannot do anything to upset their economic power, because already they have a strong power structure, not only in the United States, but also globally, if you are talking about NATO, because all these power structures are protecting their economic interests. All right. And I'm coming, of course, because we are talking about Diddy. Now, the absence of this power structure created the problems, of course, for the blacks. But the whites continued to push the blacks and the Africans, for that matter, away from having access to power, political power. And we see this even at the United Nations, that even as we speak right now, Africa, with 1.4 billion people, is not represented on the United Nations Security Council as a permanent member. And when they want to give the seats, which they say the United States now is supporting 2 seats for the African continent, they say that those seats will not have veto power. So, which means it will be an insult to the Africans, as one of the African heads of state, representatives at the United Nations, say that this will be an insult to the Africans. So, this is a racist tactic to alienate the black race from power, from political power. And of course, another tactic was used is to bring close those blacks who are cooperative and are accepting of protecting the white power structure. And we see people like General Langley, who is the leader of AFRICOM, and we see all of them, the chief of staffs, whatever it is. We have seen the blacks, Linda Thomas, all these kind of people. Who is a black person, who is a representative of the United States at the United Nations. They are there to protect the power structure. Those were to be encouraged and to be given lucrative positions. Now, where did this leave the blacks now? It left us naked, that we are not protected. We are not protected both on the continent, and we are not protected even in the diaspora. Now, what happened in the continent and what is happening even today is that in the continent of Africa, while we are crying, we have a leadership problem, the United States is constantly interfering in the African continent and planting its own presidents on the African continent. Those it does not like, it removes them. And this is what other people don't understand, especially the diaspora. We have a problem with showing this to the diaspora, that what is happening in the United States is the same thing that is happening on the African continent. All these elements like Ouattara in Ivory Coast, and all these you see, Ruto, all these Nanado, all these empty, Tinubu, all these empty, weak leaders who cannot do anything for Africa. They are there, they are protected by the United States and the Western world, and they claim that these are democratically elected leaders. Okay, so this is to keep the blacks down, to keep the majority of the black people down. And the tactic that was devised in the United States, another tactic was devised, is that they said that they want to create a system whereby, let me read it for you here, so you can see what I'm talking about. They say that one of the policies, let me look at the range of policy options that we have to implement to make our strategy successful. This is what they said. They said that the concern for the future security of the United States makes necessary the range of policy options arranged without intent imply priority. They are okay. These are the options. The concern for the future security of the United States makes it necessary the range of options arranged without intent implying priority. They are here. Now, what they said, one of those policies which they said, that they will work out and realize preventive operations in order to impede durable ties between United States black organizations and radical groups in African states. So there was to be the creation of division and to foster division between the blacks in the United States and the blacks on the African continent. But this is what is very important now when we come to the issue of Diddy, which we are discussing. They say that they will support actions designed to sharpen social stratification in the black community, which will lead to the widening and perpetuation of the gap between successful, educated blacks and the poor, giving rise to growing antagonism between black groups and a weakening of the movement as a whole. What movement are they talking about? They're talking about the movement, the Black Panther movement, and any movement which was demanding for political rights in the United States for blacks. Let me repeat that statement. They are saying that one of the policy options that they have to weaken and to protect the United States, of course, they are talking about protecting the white power structure, is to support actions designed to sharpen social stratification in the black community, which would lead to the widening and perpetuation of the gap between successful, educated blacks and the poor. Create a gap. They said that this would give rise to a growing antagonism between different black groups and a weakening of the movement as a whole. This was the strategy. And we did not read it. Even up to now, of course, it is unfortunate that we have not realized it as blacks, as Africans on this African continent, and of course in the diaspora too. This was to happen. When you come to the African continent, the African heads, they hide themselves in palaces. They don't want to be part of the people. And when people like Ibrahim Traore comes and is part of the people, they say that it is populism. They call it populism. All right. They want these African heads of state who are distancing themselves from the people. It's the same thing that is happening in the United States. Now, the successful blacks were to be given temporary. What they were given actually was temporary power, is temporary wealth. And then that brings us to Diddy himself. These guys were given temporary wealth. Any blacks who wanted to use their wealth for the benefit of their communities, the wealth would come and be taken over. They would find a way to take over that wealth. And we saw with people like Tupac, because Tupac was conscientizing people about the importance of political power. This was an enemy of the power structure. But even the blacks who are given temporary benefits, they are supposed to behave in a certain way. And we saw this with of course, the different blacks who have been abused, and of course, their wealth has been taken over. We've seen people like Michael Jackson. The wealth, he had so much wealth, but it took a time. He reached a time, and they have taken back this wealth. They have taken back his rights in Sony. They have taken all this wealth. They have taken it back. The whites have taken it back, the wealth which he controlled. All right. We saw Kanye West, how he was humiliated. Temporary wealth. They give it to you and they take it back. And this is coming to Diddy also. So this is the danger, because the wealth is theirs. It's a temporary tactic. Now, what I'm saying is this. I'm not condoning Diddy's activities if he abused the women. And if he abused the women, then he needs to account for it. But I'm also saying that blacks, we the blacks, and especially the African Americans, you need to be careful when you are celebrating this downfall, because what is happening is an attack. It's an attack on all of us. It's an attack on all of us, and they are demonstrating that we don't have power. And we don't have power to protect our own people. The whites have this power to protect their own people. I'll give you an example. Why the whites have power to protect their own people. Let me show you something here. The whites have the whites have power to protect their own people. Okay, this is 2019. Okay, this is 2019, and Reuters. This is Reuters. What are they saying? That the United States imposes visa ban on international criminal court investigators. And this was Pompeo who came out to say this. What did Pompeo say? Mike Pompeo say the United States will withdraw or deny visas. The United States will withdraw or deny visas to any international criminal court personnel investigating war crimes by United States forces in Afghanistan, okay, and other parts of the world. Secretary of State Pompeo said on Friday, the court which sits in The Hague responded that it was independent and impartial and an impartial institution and will continue to do its work, undeterred by Washington's actions. The Trump administration threatened in September to ban international criminal court judges and prosecutors from entering the United States and the sanction funds they have there if the court launched a probe of war crimes in Afghanistan. So this is the power structure that I'm talking about. That these people have the power to protect themselves. They have power to protect their crimes. So this is what I'm saying, that before we celebrate as black people, we need to step back and think about it. Because in the US, there's bigger criminals. There's people like Clinton. Clinton had sex in the White House with a girl, a full president of the country, and he was married. This was a married person, but did he go to jail? This guy should have gone to jail. George Bush Sr. Okay, George Bush Senior, he killed more than 500,000 babies in Iraq through sanctions. These guys, did they go to jail? They instead died when they are old age, more than 90 years. That's how he died. George Bush Jr., Tony Blair, these guys, they killed more than 1 million people, in Iraq. These people, have they gone to jail? Have you seen? Diddy has not killed anyone. Has he killed anyone? Of course, there's controversy that surrounds him that he may have killed Tupac or something, maybe something like that. But guys, that is not what he's being arrested for. They are arresting him for having sex with women or whatever it is, pimping women. Is this a case that they should arrest him for? And of course, that is something that we can argue for. That is something we can discuss among ourselves. But what we are saying is that if the case was able to be settled with Cassie, Cassie was able to settle the case with Diddy and she accepted the man and they gave her. So then why make a fuss about it? Why make a fuss of it? In his house where they found him, did they find any women there or whatever it is that he was trafficking women? There was not. So we should not be quick to celebrate. Tony Blair, George Bush are walking free men right now. They killed 1 million people. These people have destroyed the nations. They killed people, thousands of people in Libya. President Obama. These guys killed thousands of people. Why? Because there's a power structure to protect them. So I'm cautioning my brothers, my African brothers in the United States to be careful when they are celebrating the arrest of Diddy. Because what is happening is an attack on the blacks, is an attack on the Africans, is an attack on all of us as blacks, to weaken us, to continue to weaken us. Anyone who has wealth, they keep taking that wealth from them. Anyone who's close to being a billionaire, they take that wealth from them. We are seeing this even happening on the African continent itself. You are seeing that the multinational companies on the African continent, Chevron, Shell, ExxonMobil, they are in Nigeria. They are attacking Dangote, the only billionaire we have. On the African continent, we have very few black billionaires. Musopi, Dangote. The rest are white on the African continent. They are white billionaires. What do you think that is? You think that is an accident? They are attacking Dangote because he's trying to upset the system. And we know that Jimmy Dimon, he gave an interview recently, I think it was on CNBC, and he said that the global system is facing challenges. The United States system is facing challenges. It's being upset. These people are trying to destroy our system. What system is that they are talking about? They are talking about the system which exploits the world. That is the system they're talking about to these guys. So it's not anything. It's not anything else that they're talking about. They're talking about a system that exploits the world. Okay? The system that keeps the rest of the world in bondage. That is the system they're talking about. So, are you going to celebrate this? Are you going to celebrate white oppression? Are you going to celebrate the oppression of blacks by whites and their power structure and their power system globally? Because the same thing that you are seeing, the same economic lynching that is happening, to Diddy, is the same economic lynching that is happening to Dangote in Nigeria. That they are trying to destroy the refinery. They are denying him crude oil. And they are using the internal elements, the collaborators, the black collaborators in Nigeria, to attack Dangote, who is fighting for the interests of the blacks. Now, I'm not saying that Diddy is fighting for the interests of the blacks, but I'm saying that you should be careful when you are celebrating. You should see the bigger picture. You should see the attack, because who is next? You never know who is next now. After Michael Jackson, after Diddy, after Kanye West, then who will be next? Will it be Jay-Z? And of course, these blacks were given temporary wealth. So what we are saying is that we as blacks, we need to understand the game that is being played. Like, Dick Gregory used to say that it is a game. It is a game they play. These guys are just playing a game. They are playing on your mind. Now, we need to wake up, because we are not making progress. The few blacks who have made progress, it does not mean that the whole race as blacks has made progress. Look at us as Africans on the African continent. In the 1960s, 1970s, we had a global share of manufacturing, 1%. Today, we have 1.9%. After 6 years, we have not made progress. We have global output is just less than 3% compared to the GDP, global GDP. Our share of global GDP is just less than 3%. Our productivity on the continent. Is it that Africans are less productive? No. Imperialism is oppressing the continent using puppets on the continent. So this, we need to understand it. We need to take this into account and understand that we should not do premature celebrations, and to understand that it is a game that is being played, and that game is to take the blacks off the understanding that it is political power which rules everything, so that they will stop agitating, so that blacks will stop agitating for power. So it is high time that the blacks in the United States, the Africans in the United States, get together and start agitating for power like it happened in the 60s. And of course, working together with the continent, the Africans on the continent, because this is what they don't want to see. We need to work together as blacks, as Africans, both in the diaspora and on the continent, to push for the interests of all of us. And that means building a political power base on the African continent, because without that political power base, they're going to continue to molest us. They're going to continue to molest blacks all over the globe. They're going to continue to kill, because they have a power base. The whites have a power base, and that power base is in the United States right now. And it is embodied also in NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That is where they come together when they are going to attack Iraq, Libya. Australia brings troops, Canada brings troops, Germany brings troops, Britain, France, everyone brings troops. Every one of the white nations, they bring troops, and they will go and attack the innocent people and kill them. These are white nations. So this is a game they play. Like I said, like how Dick Gregory used to say. Dick Gregory used to say that. It's a game. It's all a game they are playing. But it's a power game at the end of the day. So we need to work together, both in the diaspora, Africans in the diaspora and Africans on the continent, to be able to upset this global power system that is being used to put the Africans down perpetually. And they are even protecting it. They are using this system to continuously steal from the African continent and put them back down in the ground whenever they rise up, so that they can continue to suffer and continue to be impoverished, while the white race continues to soar up and continues to collaborate with a few blacks who are willing to protect this system when they get a few benefits. But even these blacks, what they don't know, that from time to time, they turn around against them and they swallow them, like what we are saying they are doing to Diddy. So this is the situation that is happening today. I don't know what you think over there. Please put that in the comment section. What do you think that we should do about it? What do you think that this situation, is gonna? Where is it going? Where are we going now with this kind of situation? What do you think with the, is going to happen with the Diddy situation? And as blacks, what do you think our predicament is if we don't come together to work together and move together? My name is Kwame Gonza, and the channel is called Africa Reimagined, and also Connect Africa. So I want to thank you once again for being part of the platform. Please support us through our PayPal account. Support us through our super chat, super sticker. Give us some super stickers so that we can continue to pay homage to the work that was done by our great ancestors, and we can continue to serve the continent. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. See you. Peace.